Well, here's the next project in the shop. This is an Easy Go Marathon. I believe the model year is a 1993, if I'm not mistaken. It's a 36 volt electric golf cart, and we use the heck out of this golf cart more now than we ever have. We used to get a lot of use out of it at the other house, but now I'm on this thing almost every day, seems like. And using it for run out, check the mail, take the garbage cans out, run out to the barn. It's winter and it's dark. Seems like the only time I'm available to go outside and work, it's dark. Well, I've always kind of tolerated the headlights being, not great. But now, since I'm using this golf cart so much more and it's always dark when I'm on it, they're bad. I need to upgrade the lighting on this golf cart pretty substantially. So what we're going to do is, I think I'm going to leave those on it, but I'm going to put a light bar across the top of that thing. And that should help out a lot. So before we get into the install, let's go ahead and take this for a drive. And I'll try to give you a feel for what it's like, to drive it in the dark right now. All right, well, here we are just backed out of the garage. I'm going to go ahead and flip the switch here. And first thing you'll notice, lights didn't come on at all. There we go, wiggle the wires, and they both came on. Now, keep your eye on that one on the right as we go here, and see if it doesn't kind of fall. Seems like vibration causes it to fall down. They do sort of a sufficient job. There we go, it's already falling down. They do okay. I mean, it'll keep you out of trouble, but they could be a whole lot better. We'll just run out here to the barn, turn around and go back. So this will be kind of a before. We'll run the same route after we install that light bar, and that'll give us an idea of hopefully the improvement that the light bar will make. Well, here's our light bar. It's supposed to be a 38-inch light bar with the optional wiring kit. Now, this is one of those cheapies I got off of eBay. This is a no-name. So I think I paid, well, I know what I paid for it. I paid $52.42 for the bar and kit. Let's go ahead and open it up and see what we got. Now, it's supposed to be 38. I measured the box here is about 40 inches. So it took a while to get. I'm sure you guys know how shipping has been recently. The post office has been so backed up. UPS and FedEx are using, I guess, like private individuals. Because the UPS driver here lately has been some lady in a little SUV, little Chrysler SUV. I haven't seen a brown truck in months. There was some kid in a jacked up Chevy pickup truck delivering for UPS about a month ago. Here lately it's been some lady in a little SUV though. So the wiring kit's supposed to have a relay, connectors, and a switch. Watch when you're ordering these things off of Amazon or eBay that they don't come with any wiring. So looks like we are gonna have plenty of wire to work with. So that's good. It comes with a fuse. Now, to kind of briefly discuss the electrical wiring we're going to do. The cart is a 36 volt, and this light bar is 12 volt. I don't know if I could find a 36 volt light bar, or if I could, they were ridiculously expensive. So what I did was buy a 12 volt light bar, and we're going to use Next little piece of kit we're gonna open up, I've already opened it up, but I'll show you, is a voltage regulator. It steps, it'll step the power down from 36 volt for the whole battery pack on the cart down to 12 volt to make the light bar work. Okay, here we go. Big drum roll, please. Well, the packaging ain't terrible. And you can see I've got my big shop battery just sitting up here. We're going to test this thing. I keep a 12 volt deep cycle battery laying around all the time just for oddball stuff like this. I use a lot when I'm wiring up trailers and stuff, just to test all the lights. But it works out real handy for stuff like this where I want to test this light bar on a 12 volt setup before I install the voltage regulator and everything like that. I want to make sure it works. That's everything in there. Real simple little hardware kit comes with it. There's a couple of brackets for the end, so those should mount on the end here, and we'll get into that in a minute. I'm tempted just to hold these wires on the battery, but we probably really ought to go ahead and wire it up on the kit. Just because it, the relay and fuse there, we want to take advantage of that fuse. So let's see what we got to do. That's our, let's see, fuse relay. I'm going to guess that's our power supply. So this must be to the light. We should be able to just plug these wires into here for now. If they'll stay, probably not. Strip them back a little bit. Wow, 18 gauge wire according to my strippers. So, real light duty stuff. They tend the tips of the wire though, so I mean that's a little bit of a sign of quality construction. If you want to assume this thing's got any kind of quality construction. Oh, we got power on our switch. Can you see that little red glow there? Hey, hey, hey. Jeez, oh Pete. That thing is bright, golly. You guys see that? Heck yeah, you can. You probably can't see nothing now. Oh, I've wiggled it around enough where... Okay. Well, we verified that the light bar works. The wiring kit is going to work. Apparently the wiring works as well, so let's take a look at this voltage regulator. Now you can call this a voltage regulator, you can call this a transformer, you can call it a reducer. I am no electrician, I am no electrical engineer. I'm just a guy that tinkers, and I know just enough to get me in trouble. So what I found, the research that I did before I bought anything, I wanted to figure out what I needed, because I want to use the whole battery pack on the golf cart. A quick and dirty way to get 12 volts out of a 36 volt system is just don't tie into all the batteries. And that's how the headlights are on that golf cart right now. I'm only tied into 2 batteries, to supply power for those headlights. It's not a balanced load on the batteries. It's not good for those 2 batteries. It's actually not good for all 6 batteries. But it was a quick and dirty way to do it. So, and it's worked for the last few years, and a lot of guys get years and years and years out of, you know, a set of batteries like that. But I want to do it the right way this time around. So this voltage regulator, I made sure was going to be powerful enough to run that light bar. So this steps down from 36 volt coming in here to 12 volt going out here. And it does that with, this is rated at 20 amps maximum at 12 volts. Now the light bar is advertised at 180 watts. They don't tell you what the amperage is, but you can figure that 180 watts divided by 12 volts that we're going to be pulling off of it makes that 15 amp draw light bar. So that light bar wired up to 12 volts should draw 15 amps. This voltage regulator maximum output is 20 amps. So 15 into 20 is 75%. So that light bar will draw a 75% load, max load off of this. So we should be safe. This thing shouldn't overheat. It should be able to handle it. You would not want to, if that light bar drew 20 amps, I wouldn't want to put it on a 20 amp voltage regulator. Maximum load on a circuit you typically want to run is no more than 75, 80% is the most I've ever seen anybody reference. So we should be pretty safe here. The lower the percentage of load, the better off you are. And actually, that light bar, if we were able to run it off of, theoretically, if that light bar could handle 36 volts, which it cannot. It's advertised at 30 volts maximum, I think was the advertisement on that. But theoretically, if that light bar could handle 36 volts, you would draw the 180 watt divided by 36. That would only be a 5 amp draw. So I'm getting off in the weeds here, guys. But what I'm saying is I did my homework, 75% load on this thing. We should be safe to continue our wiring. So I'm going to go ahead and move over to the golf cart. We'll get this wired into the battery pack, and kind of the more I think about it, I don't know if I'll run those, I don't know if I'll continue to run those headlights that are on the front of the golf cart. But anyhow, we'll get over to the golf cart. I'll get you guys set up over there, and we'll keep on keeping on. All right, guys. Well, like I said, I know just enough about electricity to get myself in trouble. And before I go over to the cart, I thought I'd go ahead and splice on a couple of pigtails onto the voltage regulator here to give me enough room once I get it in the cart. So I'm just going to put on some pigtails here, and I'm awfully glad I checked. Before I was holding these wires up, can you see that? The 2 heavy gauge wires, I just assumed, and when I say heavy gauge, I mean they're barely heavier than the other 2. What is that, maybe a 12? No, it's just got a thicker jacket. They're all 14 gauge wires. These have a thicker jacket. They're just a little overall diameter larger. I grabbed those assuming that those are larger wires, must be the power supply in. In fact, they're not. So make sure you pay attention what's going on here on your box, or look at your instructions. So anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wire up the black and red over here on this end are the power supply. The yellow and black on the other side, the larger gauge wires, are actually the load equipment. So that'll be to the light bar. But I wanted to show you how I do my electrical connections. There's a zillion little, electrical connectors. The best way, the absolute best way, is to solder. I don't do a whole lot of soldering though. I do butt connectors, crimp-on butt connectors, and I want to show you these pliers here. Can you see that nub in the middle? It's for a non-insulated connector, but that works the best for crimping these little, you know, they got a metal insert, little aluminum insert. I use that little nub on these pliers. Let me show you my little process here, because it works out really, really well. So we're going to do this red wire. First thing, I got heat shrink tubing. This is, I believe this is, what is this, 1/4 inch size. So slide that on there. Dielectric grease. If you're not using this on your electrical connections, you should be. I clipped the tip off big enough where I can get that connector to plug right in there. Give it a little squeeze. And that squirts dielectric grease up inside that butt connector. So that butt connector now is full of dielectric grease. So I'm going to put that on there. I'm again using the little nub. Slide that on my wire and crimp it down. Now that connector is not going to come off of there. Because I used that nub though, that broke the plastic, and I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Probably not. Inside that blue you can see the aluminum. So there is exposed, you know, that's exposed now. That'll have current going through it. But because we're using the heat shrink tubing as a jacket, that won't affect us at all. So the other end, I'm going to put my my little stub of wire, just about 1 foot or 16 inches, something like that. I'll crimp that on. Always pull on your connections. When you're making a connection, pull on that. Pull on it as hard as you want. You should not be able to separate that. If you can, it's a bad connection. So I'm pulling really hard on that, and it ain't moving at all. So I got grease squeezed out there. I can see grease squeezing out down here, so I know I'm in good shape. That grease keeps the weather from corroding. Well, air, oxygen will corrode that connection anyhow. Another thing to consider is you got dissimilar metals, so you've got aluminum connector on a copper wire. Won't matter in my lifetime, but you know, over years and years, that could become a problem for corrosion. Anyhow, again, getting off in the weeds. Okay, so slide the heat shrink tubing up over there. The dielectric grease gets all over everything. It won't hurt you though. It's I believe that's silicone based, what makes that stuff. So anyhow, I can feel my butt connector in there. This piece of tubing is about 2 inches long. So I can feel my connector. I've got it centered up in there. You see that? You could use a heat gun. I just use a cigarette lighter. I'm gonna heat that up all the way around. So roll your wire around in your hand. This 14 gauge wire is pretty small stuff for 1/4 inch heat shrink tubing. It sometimes doesn't go all the way down against the wire, but it does a real good job. It gets real close. It's the smallest gauge wire, or it's the smallest gauge heat shrink tubing you can use to go over these blue connectors. And those blue connectors are the most common size. So there you go, guys. Now we have a weatherproof connection. We won't have to worry about, there you are. I realize it's going to be hard to see here, but we will not have to worry about that connection failing. It's not going to wiggle. That's a good, strong, tight connection. Waterproof, well, weatherproof, and that's how I'm going to do all my fittings. I'll end up putting ring terminals on somewhere throughout this process. I'll be putting ring terminals on, and I treat them the same way. I use crimp-on ring terminals, dielectric grease up in them, and I'll slide a piece of heat shrink tubing over it to protect it. And anyhow, I don't get too long-winded on that. That's how I'm going to do all my connections. We'll get over to the golf cart and continue. All right, here we are over at the golf cart. Light might be a little bit of an issue here. I hope you guys can see what's going on. So typical 36 volt golf cart. We got six 6-volt batteries in here. And if you guys that are not real familiar with how this works, these are 6-volt batteries, but they're tied in series. So like the It sort of starts out, you start out with this negative. You know, this negative is going as power supply to the cart. The positive end of that battery goes to the negative end of that battery. The positive end of that battery goes to negative on that one. Positive on that one goes to negative on that one, and on down the line until you get to the end of the line. And then this is the positive supply to the cart. So you got the negative supply to the cart here. You got the positive supply to the cart here. And like I mentioned before, I'm running my headlights. This is the headlight power supply, the current power supply on those two little rinky-dink headlights. I'm pulling off the positive. Let's see, the positive on this battery and the negative on this battery. So I'm using those two batteries to supply that current. Anyhow, I want to test this thing to make sure that it's, you know, that it's a good voltage regulator. So what I'm doing here is, well, there we go. On the back side of the thing, it's even got input and output marked on it. I don't know if you can see that. That's pretty handy too, though. So there again, that is jiving with the instructions. So input side, this is the negative supply to the cart. This is the positive supply to the cart. So I'm gonna put my negative. I'm gonna try to clamp it on here just temporarily, just to test. This will be my positive. Whoa-wee! Probably shouldn't have done that. Probably should have done the negative after the positive. So let me grab my tester here and see if I didn't just fry something. I hope not. Let's see if I can hold that up there and you guys can see what I'm seeing. There we go. 12.1, 12.0, 12.2. So we got 12 volt output, and just so you don't think I'm pulling your leg, I don't know if you'll be able to read that voltmeter, but you can see, maybe you can see, maybe you can't. On the voltmeter, it's 39 input. So we got 39, stepping down to 12. So we're in good shape to go ahead and install this thing. We know it's working, even though I'm trying to spark it and fry it and everything, it's still gonna work. So I'm gonna go ahead and install it, and I was kind of looking at it just for a second. The location is gonna be a little bit important. Now this thing, you'll see, it's got fins on it. These are cooling fins. So we want to kind of keep this thing clean, because those fins are going to radiate heat out. And if they get all plugged up with dirt and mud, even a little bit of dirt and mud is going to affect how well it does to cool. If it overheats, it's not going to work right. Well, it's not going to work at all if it overheats too much. And I don't know if you can see or not, move you around a little bit. Under the seat in this cart, there are areas that are prone to get dirtier than others. So like back here, a lot of dirt. You can see these back two batteries, they get water thrown up on them. That's why they're wet. Over there, a lot of mud. So the back area, we kind of want to stay away from. Up here in the front though, reasonably clean. So I think I want to mount it right here. Hopefully you can see that. Anyhow, I'll go ahead and fiddle with that. I'll get it bolted up there, and I'll get right back with you guys. Well, we got our regulator bolted on. Just a couple of bolts from the front. Try to keep it kind of clean looking. Next step is going to be get that light bar mounted up there, and then we'll, once we get the light bar mounted up, we'll just connect the dots with the wiring. Well, here we are at the front, and I want to see how this thing looks, where I kind of want to mount it. And so I think I want it right in the middle like this. If I put it up here on top, I'm back in the woods a lot with it, and I'm kind of afraid. I want to keep it as low as possible, you know, considering that it's on the roof. But I get into a lot of twigs and sticks and stuff back here in the wood, so I don't want it sticking up too proud. I can't put it under the bar. I mean, ideally, I would put it right here, but then my windshield won't close. So if the windshield comes up, it won't fit there. I think what I'm going to do is mount it on the front of this bar. And if I do that, the mounting brackets that they gave me aren't long enough, which is not a big deal. I'll just have to bend up a couple of brackets real quick. So anyhow, I was wiggling this thing around before, you know, just picked up this, I just picked this thing up off the bench. I want you guys to listen to something. It's got stuff rattling around in it. Now it's kind of hung up on something. I'm afraid whatever that is might cause a short. There we go. It's wiggling around again. I'm afraid whatever's in there might cause a short. So I think I'm going to take the end cap off here and see if I can't get whatever's in there out. Well, here we are back over at the bench, and I'm probably going to regret taking this end cap off, but if I don't take it off, I'm going to be afraid that whatever's in there rattling around is going to cause a short. So there are 3 Allen head screws holding this end cap on, looks like. I'm going to go ahead and pull these off, and I'll get back with you. There's the third one. So just so you can see how this cap comes off, lifts off. I'm glad to see there's a little rubber seal under there. That's great news. And we can get a look at the seal here. You see that white foam that's sandwiched in there behind the glass. So that's kind of good to see. Let's see if we can get whatever's in there to roll out. There it is. A screw. Looks like it was screwed into something. So that's not great. It's Phillips head. All these are Allen head. So something probably loose in there. Okay. Here's another little clue. That board is held to the back with a Phillips head screw. Looks just like that. So we probably had a screw work out of the back. You know, it was holding that board in the back. So the board's now loose. Let's see if there's any more in there. I don't hear anything else. The good news is if we look down in there, see how deep that reflector tray is or whatever. That's probably going to do a lot of good to hold that board back. It's hard to say how many screws there are holding that board, so hopefully having one screw come out is not the end of the world. But I'm glad we got it out of there, because I sure wouldn't want it to be in there rattling around, cause a short or something. So hopefully that's it. Let's go ahead and get this thing put back together just like it was. So something I did, I'm not thrilled about construction wise. You can see, I hope you can see here, 2 out of the 3 screws, well heck, actually all 3 screws, they're just threaded into a channel. So they're not completely captured. The threads are, threads are only about 3/4 around the diameter of the screw. It goes back there also on that one. But anyhow, It's a cheap light bar, so you get what you pay for. We'll go ahead and get these screws put back in here, and I'll catch you guys up. All right, well, here we are. It's actually 2 days later. I made up a couple of quick little brackets out of just some steel that I had laying around, 1 inch thick. Drilled a couple of holes in it, one to mount the light bar, one for the bracket to mount on the frame of the roof. The bracket that they give you, these little brackets here, they're long enough to mount on the top or bottom of the light bar, but they're not long enough to mount the light bar straight out like I want to do it off the front of the canopy here. So the brackets that I made are twice as long as the ones they gave you. Wasn't real hard to do. I just put it in a vise and bent it up. Quick little Rust-Oleum spray paint job on there to keep it from rusting. And so then I went ahead and kind of held it up there. Of course, I bolted them on. I bolt my brackets onto the light bar. Held it up there where I need it. I went ahead and marked the frame of the roof here, and I'll go ahead and, because of how wide this bar is, I have to tuck the brackets in behind the light bar here, so I can't get the screws in when it's mounted to the bar, so I'm going to have to fasten the brackets to the roof first, then I'll put the light bar on. So I've got it marked already. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mount these brackets up, and then we'll bolt the light bar on there, and we'll get to wiring. Well, hopefully you can see I got my 2 brackets mounted on here. I got them through bolted with 1/4 inch bolts. Got them tightened up. They're good and sturdy. So now we're going to put the light bar on, and that should just be a matter of putting these Allen head bolts through the side. Fumbling with washers. Got a lock washer and a flat washer. I want to put on each one. I think I kind of want to angle that mostly flat, maybe just a bit down. Okay, that's on there. Now, moving on to the wiring. So, I don't know if the kit that they gave us has enough wire. I haven't played with it yet. I'm going to go ahead and play with this rat's nest for a little bit, and I'll catch you guys up here in a minute. Well, I was stretching out my rat's nest of wire here, and I may have enough to do this without having to splice in, longer wires. So I'm going to let the relay and fuse live under the seat here. I'm going to fish the switch and the supply wires for the light bar down. I'm going to go, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. Different models of golf cart are going to vary anyhow, so what I'm doing on this one is probably not going to be exactly what you do on yours anyhow. But I'm going to fish my power supply wire and my switch down through here behind the batteries. I'm going to tuck them up along the inside of the frame underneath here to keep them from banging into rocks and stuff, because these golf carts ride really low. So I want to protect the wires. So I'm going to tuck them up under there. I'm going to zip tie them inside or up under the frame. And then I think I'm going to bring them up. I'd like to get them back up inside the cart, get them away from the rocks and stuff as quickly as possible. So once I get under this floorboard part, or where your feet are, where you'd notice the wires, I'm going to bring them in. There's a hole right here and tuck them up on the inside of this kick panel here and then hide them up in the dash. Well, I'll hide the switch up in the dash. The light for the wire for the light is actually then going to peek out right here, I guess, and I'll try to keep that as tidy as possible up the the canopy frame here. I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera. I don't want to bore you with that, and I'll catch you up when I get that done. All right, well, we've got our wire run up to the light. This is the stub sticking off the light. Hopefully you can see, it's about 1 foot long. I went ahead and slid a piece of 1/4 inch heat shrink tubing up over this wire, and I'm going to try to keep this as tidy of a job here as possible because it's going to be visible. There's really no way to hide that on this vertical post here. I've got to make 2 connections, and rather than having both connections made in the same spot, that shrink tubing can never go over 2 connectors in the same spot. So I want to stagger my wires. So I'm going to cut, the red one short and the black one a little long, and that way my connectors will be staggered. I'm going to go ahead and do that because it's going to take me a few minutes fiddling around with this. I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera. I'll catch you guys up. I'll show you what I mean. Well, here's what I meant by, staggering my connections. So I've cut my wires at kind of different lengths there. I'll go ahead and make the connections and show you what it looks like. All right, well, here you can see I've made my connections, and they're staggered. So hopefully this shrink tubing will go down over them. This is 1/4 inch. I probably should have went with 5/16. So I think it's going to be really, really tight here. So this might be kind of a fight. And since I've already made my connections, there's kind of no going back on the tubing size. That one went in pretty good. This one's going to be a fight. I'm going to go ahead and fight this on, and I'll catch you up in a bit. Well, a couple little setbacks here. That shrink tubing, that 1/4 inch, I just couldn't get it down over both those connectors. I could get one of them in there, but it was just too much tension when I got to the other one. So should have used 5/16 or 3/8. The other thing I realized is I cut my wire too short. I can't get my windshield up without pulling on that wire. So we're going to fix both these little problems. I'm going to just splice in another little piece of wire in the middle of the line here because I do kind of want to keep this tidy. So I got myself into a pickle here, but I'll get myself back out. Well, here we go again, take 2. You can see I spliced in just a couple of short sections of wire, probably 5 inches long. Got everything crimped up. I got dielectric grease in all my fittings. This is now 5/16 tubing, and we're gonna see if it'll, can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. We're gonna see if it'll go on there better than that 1/4 inch did. Oh yeah, way better. But now we got to fight 4 fittings rather than just 2, so. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and get my lighter and shrink that up and zip tie it up. I'll show you what it looks like when we get that all done. Well, the shrink tubing did a good job of tidying that appearance up there. A couple of zip ties just holding it in place. The windshield flips up, no problem. So we'll finish up the wiring under the seat. All right, so just to recap, we got our wire coming down from the light bar, goes down that pole, hides along that vertical, just tucked inside right here. I've got it hidden and zip tied. I had to drill a couple of holes in this rubber molding and zip tied it along the back side of that molding to hide it. It goes under, kind of under the cart. It's again zip tied along the bottom here, and then it peeks out under the seat. I've got it zip tied against the frame here, and it runs to this relay. I went ahead and I bolted that relay on here. There was already a there was already a bolt there, so I went ahead and took advantage of that. So I've got that relay there. The connections we need to make here are, I'm going to cut these loops off. These came, with the light kit. I'm going to cut these off, and we're going to do butt connectors to our transformer or voltage regulator, whatever you want to call that, to the load side of the voltage regulator. And then I'm going to I'll put ring terminals on the supply side of the voltage regulator, and those will go to the negative and positive on the batteries. I'll go ahead and make those connections off camera, and then I'll show you once it's all done. So I made my final connections there. You can see the battery negative, battery positive, and the wires going out to the light bar. Put a little zip tie on there to try to tidy that up a bit. It is kind of a mess under the seat of this cart, just wires everywhere, but it's an electric cart, so keep it as tidy as I can. We didn't talk about the switch at all. I ran that up. It came out of the floor. It goes under this rubber floor mat, and the wire just kind of hides up behind the dash there. Now the switch came with an adhesive on the back of it, so I cleaned up a spot real well with brake parts cleaner on that plastic there and just stuck it right there. If there are any Chinese engineers watching this video, quit making it so all the switches light up even when they're in their off position. That thing's just going to sit there and eat voltage all the time. So not much voltage, but it's just wasteful, and I got a little red light going to be on my dash all the time. So anyhow, I'll tolerate that for a while. If that switch goes bad or if it gets so annoying I can't stand it, I'll change that out. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go over and shut off the lights of the garage, and I'll show you what it looks like when we turn this thing on. Well, it's getting pretty dark outside, so when I turn off the lights in the garage here, it gets pretty dark inside the garage. This light bar is really bright. We're going to let it get all the way dark outside, and we'll go make the same lap that we did when we started this project, and we'll see if there's any difference between those old headlights and this light bar. All right, well, it's dark outside. That light you're seeing there is coming from the light above the garage. Let's go ahead and we'll compare these headlights to the new light bar. So that's the headlights. There's the light bar. This is no comparison. Oh, it's snowing. I didn't even notice it. Without the, well, when the light bar's on, you can see it, but I'll be darned. Okay, guys, let's make the same trip we did, that's been 2-3 nights ago now. We'll run out here to the barn and see how well you can see the driveway now. I'm happy with it. We'll see how well it holds up. It's cheap Chinese stuff. Hopefully these parts last. I've got some numbers here on my notepad. I thought I'd go over with you guys in case you're curious about doing something like this, on your own. The light bar is listed as a 38-inch. I put a tape measure on it. It actually measures 37.5 inches. Now, again, this cart is an easy-go marathon. I would imagine, all golf carts are similar. If this light bar were an inch or two longer, I would have had a heck of a time mounting it because of the roof. It makes like a radius. So keep that in mind when you're sizing your light bar to your golf cart or whatever. This was a squeeze getting it to fit on this one. So I definitely wouldn't go any larger than 38 inch. Also, the larger the light bar, typically the more juice they're drawing off your batteries. The more light output you have, but the more juice they're drawing. So keep that in mind when you're deciding what size light bar you want to use. Now, also on the light output on this light bar, it's listed. I don't know if I believe this or not. I mean, it's a lot of light, but it's listed as 18,000 lumens. Just for perspective, your typical house light, your 100-watt equivalent, LED bulbs in the kitchen, those are 1,500 lumens, and those are pretty bright. This is equal to 12 of those. So I don't know if I believe it or not, but it's a tremendous amount of light. Anyhow, this light bar I got off of eBay, $52.42 shipped to my door, tax and all. The voltage regulator, the best deal I could find on it was on Amazon, and that was $22.46. So $74.88 for those two things. Maybe another $5 in connectors and dielectric grease, shop miscellaneous stuff. So I'm probably into this thing for about 80 bucks. That's a lot of money just for, if this were just like some headlights or whatever, I wouldn't spend 80 bucks on it. But for the wow factor, I'm going to kind of show this off. If you were in a campground or something all the time with your golf cart, 80 bucks is probably a great deal, to be that guy, the guy with the ridiculous light bar. So it might be well worth 80 bucks to you. Anyhow, I thought I'd just break down those numbers for you guys. I hope I helped you with this. If I did, click that thumbs up button. If you want to see more videos like this, click the subscribe button. And until the next video, guys, keep on tinkering.